What's up, family? As you can probably imagine, I've been doing quite a bit of reflecting lately. I'm actually preparing right now to head out. Well, not right now, but preparing this week to go to California next week to participate in a documentary about the increase or rise of non belief, skepticism, atheism, and humanism in the U.S. Um, and I'm actually going to be a part of the Truth Wanted podcast tomorrow night. And so, a lot of interesting things are happening in my life right now, and it definitely just kind of keeps me in reflection mode. And so, there was something that I thought about, particularly with this thing that I've had that always kind of made me stand out um, in my schools and definitely in church, and it's this idea that I was never really appearance driven or brand driven. And so, I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, before I do, you kind of know the routine. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, join our community, volunteer in the community, check out our merch. Make sure to comment, make sure to share, all that good stuff. I think I hit all the milestones. So yeah, as a child, even as a teenager, and on as an adult, I've never really been into brands. As a matter of fact, when I was a pastor, one time when I was a pastor, I was heartbroken on my birthday when my members brought me some Jordans for my birthday, and I didn't show it to them. I wasn't like heart. I was like, oh, this is great. But when I went home, I was really sad. I was kind of crushed by that. I was like, oh, do they not know me? But because I'm just not that guy. I'm not a sneakerhead. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to look nice. It's just not something that really drives me. Fashion, I enjoy fashion. I can dress people up. I can dress myself up. I can match my colors, and do all that good stuff. And I don't say that to minimize it because I am actually fascinated by those things. It's just not something that drives me, and I'm sure it doesn't drive a lot of people. I just wasn't interested in looking like anybody else. I really do enjoy being me. I'm okay being me. I'm okay wearing my clothes. I think I may have said on another video, I am very much the type of person who does not need 20 different shirts. I don't need that. I mean, I'll probably have it one day, but it's not a need. Um, but the churches that I ended up being a part of did a lot of work to try to shame this out of me. And I mean, just from the early years, I actually I have family members who were upset with me because they were doing a celebration, and it was like an all black event, and everybody had to wear black suits. And I was a pastor at the time, and I told them, I said, I don't have a black suit. And then what type of pastor doesn't have a black suit? And by that time, I had been pastoring for probably 5 or 6 years, and I'm like, well, if you'd ever been to my church, you'd know I wear jeans at my church. And that was just something that I had got from one of my other mentors. It was this idea of like, why would you wear things that your members can't even afford to wear? That's a weird way to think about it, but it stuck for me at that time. It was like, well, the majority of the folks that's coming to my church can't really afford to go buy what we would call church clothes, so we just wore regular clothes. That was just who I was. But yeah, so it wasn't even just churches that were trying to shame this out of me. It was just definitely a lot of this culture that no, you got to look on point, you got to be like this, and I'm like, who am I looking like this for? And what reward are they going to give me for looking like this? Help me understand. But at one point, as a pastor, I was actually pressured into purchasing brand name clothes, shoes, and accessories to ensure that I had that pastor look. And though I had fought this for a long time, it did start to take. Prior, when I was just an itinerant minister, you couldn't tell me nothing. But the moment I became a pastor, it was things changed very quickly, because then it wasn't just about what I believed to be true. It was also about trying to be a faithful leader, responsible and accountable to these people that I believed that God had entrusted me with. And so when they would bring concerns, and I'm like, well, I guess I have to be like Paul here. I have to become all things to all men so that might save some. And so I think for maybe about 4 or 5 years of my pastorate ministry, I did get pretty dang spiffy. I started wearing the shirts that had the little designs on the shoulders and designs on the back. I was still wearing jeans and stuff, but definitely took on more of a flash, and I started wearing big face watches, which I actually still love those. Now, mind you, I wasn't spending a lot of money on these things because I still am that type of guy. So I was getting my big face watches from the gas station, for like $11, and half of the time they didn't even work. Truth be told, today if you see me with a watch on, it doesn't work. I just like watches, and someone got mad at me about that, and he was like, "What type of person wears a watch and it doesn't work?" Me. And mystery solved, bruh. But anyway, so but yeah, I was wearing the big face watches, wearing the chains and stuff, and and it was looking back on it, it's like, oh, this was so goofy. Yikes, this was goofy. But I promise you, if you take a look at urban churches now, you'll see a lot of exactly what I'm talking about. And the truth of the matter is, urban black churches tend to have a fascination with the lifestyle of their pastors and leaders, period. And they typically need their leaders to represent something they're aiming for. It reminds me of a line from Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he says, "They gotta want to live like me," and that's really kind of how it is in the black church. And so, even a lot of times when you see these mega church or mega church pastors, or it's not even just the mega church pastors, even your local pastors, if it's a black church, those congregations, they want him to look miles better than them. They want him to live miles better than them. They want him to drive miles better than them, or they won't trust his leadership. They won't believe that God is blessing him. Like, I mean, it sounds incredibly pedantic now, but I hate to say it, like, this is how it works in many black churches, in more of the urban ones. The country church, well, dang, some of the country churches are like that too. Godly. But yeah, there is a fascination with the lifestyle of their pastors, and this isn't necessarily new. Marcus Garvey in the book Message to the People, I want to say that's the one that it was. This book was written in the 20s, and he highlighted the same thing. He actually talks about it, but in that sense, he was kind of on the opposite spectrum that I was here, and Garvey and I don't land on opposite on a lot of things, but we were definitely on the opposite spectrum here, because Garvey's idea was that, okay, now that you know these about the people, and this is typically how most black pastors are as well. Now that you know this about the people, this is how you have to present yourself. You have to present yourself like you are spotless, like you are clean, like you are the best thing since sliced bread. And if you actually go back and look over Garvey's history himself, and that's Marcus Garvey, by the way, if I didn't say that first name, that's why he was so flamboyant himself. But it wasn't a mystery. He wrote about why, you have to be this. The people want you to live like this. And it doesn't, you don't have to look very hard to see that that's happening. Now, me, I'd prefer it, and like literally, like at one time when I was probably 17 and 18, like my desire, and again, I was gonna say don't judge me, but hey, do what you will. My desire at one point was like to be a prophet of the wilderness type thing. I wanted to be a wilderness prophet. Like, I wanted to disappear for a while and then come back with all shaggy, scruffy beard and just be like, "Thus saith the Lord, the image is broken." I want to be like Daenerys here. I come to break the will. But it was a very interesting thing. So, and I fought against it for a while, and then when I became a pastor, it became harder and harder to fight against. And even though and then I started, kind of participating and, like I said, getting all snazzy and all that stuff. I even started like putting Beijing in my beard and in my hair. That's the hair dye. And then it almost killed me because I'm apparently allergic to it. And so, like, it was about to cut off my air supply. And so I had to get a needle in the butt to save my life. So I stopped doing that. But and then also it actually began to be taxing because there was another reason I wasn't brand driven or appearance driven, and that's because I was broke my whole life. And so, like, I could not fathom, and I'm not trying to get in anybody else's pockets, but I could not fathom the integrity of spending money on clothes, that I don't need when I'm barely getting by, you know. So that was another reason I wasn't. And so once I did start participating, thinking, well, maybe this is really what we need to do, because my church at that time was probably about 150 members on roll, and we were still barely making it. And I was like, and someone, literally one of the older men in my church who had come from a stable church, a good growing church, mega church. He had come to my church and was one of the elders. He literally told me, he was like, "Hey, Pastor, these people ain't gonna start giving until you start looking better." And I mean, that was his thing. That was his idea. That was his whole ideology. That if you don't look like this part, Pastor, they're not gonna give. That's why the offerings are so low, Pastor. The offerings are so low is because you don't have name brand clothes. You're not wearing an Armani suit, or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So I did this thing, and I was still the hood pastor, so I wasn't gonna do Armani suits anyway. And I did it for a while, but then nothing changed. Our membership grew a little bit more, so we 150, about 225 on roll, end up around about 300 on roll, but nothing really changed, and it was like, oh, okay. And so it just got taxing, and because then I got further and further behind financially, and so I stopped doing that. And when I stopped doing that, no lie, my whole staff left. I had to rebuild my staff from the ground up, um, because they were trying at that moment. When I stopped doing it, they started trying to force me to do it. It was like, "Well, Pastor, here we're gonna give you some money, and you're gonna go buy you some, get you some new shoes and stuff like that." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute, where are you getting the money from?" And it's like, "Well, we're getting the money from the church's account." And I'm like, "Oh, the church has money for me to get shoes." And they're like, well, yeah, the church has money for you to get shoes. I'm like, well, do you not realize my rent is behind? That there's barely any groceries in my refrigerator. Instead of you trying to force me to get shoes, can we kind of like prioritize some things here? Because that stuff shouldn't matter. And if you value me as a pastor, it shouldn't have anything to do with what I'm wearing. Yeah, they didn't like that, so they all quit. Which, and quit is a loose word. None of us were getting paid, so they quit volunteering. They quit showing up. But that's how serious it is for a lot of places. Um, it is why, like, I did like hanging out with some of my white friends, because, like, man, their pastors could have ashy jeans and everything. Brother man could be preaching in flip flops, and everything was cool. But yeah, not in the churches that I had affiliated myself with. And then I actually had a mentor one time that, while I was working at his church, who constantly threatened to fire me if I didn't purchase better clothes. And I was like, oh. And it was like we'd just be walking down the hallway, and he'd be like, Durante, and I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, you got to get some better clothes, or I'm gonna have to fire you. Durante, yes, sir. You got to do something with your beard, or I'm gonna have to fire you. Durante, yes, sir. You're gonna have to get you a better vehicle, or I'm gonna have to fire you. It was stuff like this, and it was constant. I wish I could say I was lying. I wish I could say I was making this up. Now, I will mind you that I resigned from that church like a few weeks later, because I don't think what he understood at the time was that I wasn't playing with him when I told him I didn't need God to make my decisions for me anymore. And so, yeah, I resigned publicly. Well, it was a letter that I sent to everybody on staff, just to make it clear, you know. But yeah, I mean, and some of you may consider these examples kind of extreme, but they highlight a very real problem in religious and fringe communities alike. A focus on petty principles that have no power to produce productive progress. Instead of paying attention to what's actually being said, the people are focused on the personality, the popularity, the clothes. You wonder how so many people are misled, and I often tell people are programming themselves. We choose what we follow, we choose what we watch, we choose what we listen to, and church is no different. And if we cater to this type of behavior and uphold it as a valid way to engage the world, the result is a group of people who have a difficult time discerning the difference between show and substance. And that, my friends, is actually the state of the majority of urban black churches. All right, that's all I have for now. I hope I said something that was of some type of value. Um, If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. Consider joining our community. It's growing, it's beautiful, and we do need some volunteers. Help your boy out because life is really, really busy right now. We also have some really cool merch. Check out that merch and see if there's anything that you might want to buy to help support the channel. And if you're looking for other ways that you can support the channel, the content, or just growing secular community altogether, check out the links in the description. There's a good navigation panel down there. All right, thank you so much for your time. Until next time, keep rising, stay progressive, and stay beautiful. I'll holla.